Beginning with the attendance, Director Goins,
Here.
Director Hilliard,
Here.
Director McMillan,
Here.
Director Kurtz,
Here.
and just to inform the committee that Director Rodoni will not be with us this morning.
Thank you. Do we have any agenda adjustments? Seeing none. All right. Moving on, open time for public expression. The public is welcome to address the executive committee at this time on matters not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of the committee. Please be advised that pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2, the committee is not permitted to discuss or take action on any matter not on the agenda. Comments may be no longer than 3 minutes and should be respectful to the community. Please silence your cell phones during the meeting and mute your microphone when not speaking out. Are there any public comments?
If there are any members of the public wishing to speak who are with us remotely, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute or unmute yourself. And there are no questions at this time. There are currently no attendees in the room.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And we will move on to the executive officer's report. Mark.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to May. I will keep my briefing fairly short, but April and May, that's when we start talking about what the potential of the fire season and what it may look like. And North Ops Geographical Area Coordination Center, otherwise known as a GAC, has what's called an intel unit where they monitor the current weather, predicted weather, and the fuel conditions all across the state of California. And they always put out a 3-month predicted significant fire potential outlook. And so when you look at May, you see that the entire Northern California is, and remember, this is a relative term. It's potential, and it's whether it's below average, average, or above average. So you have to translate for, in May, average chance of a significant fire is usually fairly low, right? Whereas opposed to in October, chance for a significant fire is higher than May. So when it says it's still average in October, it doesn't mean that we aren't in increased risk. We're average relative to a typical October. So keep that in mind when you see these charts here. They're predicting a mild May, like we've had a mild April, and that'll extend the dead fuel moistures into maintaining some moisture, especially along the coast. And so that's why you see average fire potential go for both May, June along the coast, and then even in July and August, average potential. But again, remember, July and August, we start seeing increased potential. So average still means we have that potential. Definitely something that we will continue to monitor. And I've seen these things switch quite a bit, because if we have a significant dry period like through in June, then that can make some significant impacts for fire potential later on in the fire season. And wasn't planning on this coincidence of having the town manager for Mill Valley and a former council member and mayor for Mill Valley when I talk about the evacuation drill that just occurred down in Southern Marin on April 26th. But we did help participate in the planning, but not the implementation of an evacuation drill. And much of it was based on the Google study that Mayor McCauley was instrumental in getting done, and creating some out of the box type thinking as far as portion of Blythedale being contraflow, but still allowing for ingress, and also turning Hamilton into a 2-way street instead of a 1-way street, which it increases by 1/3 the number of on-ramps that people can get onto the freeway. So in partnership with Marin County Fire, Southern Marin Fire, Mill Valley PD, Marin County SO, and CHP, very complicated exercise to put this all into play. Sounds like it went well, but there definitely was some learning items. And I'll pause here and ask the guys who are much closer to it to add any additional feedback to it.
Please, can you use the mic, please? Thanks. Welcome.
Thanks. Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting to see something that started on a piece of paper, 5, 6, 7 years ago, actually become executed this last week. And I was very excited. being there and watching it happen. It was quite complicated. I guess the best way to describe it was when I went up to Captain Rick Navarro after our police chief. He says, "That's why we do these things." So there was a fair amount of learning that occurred there, and I think that's helpful. We're not going to get a after action until next month, but there was a lot of things learned, and it was important, I think, for the community to understand our basic concept. And you, Mark, described it well. Basically, there's only 4 on-ramps in total. And what we found through the Google study, which we did not see before, we had already done the contraflow. We had a lot of our own thoughts, but then when the Google group came in from above and looked down, they said, "Hey, you got an on-ramp over there that's very underutilized. You need to push a lot more cars over there." And basically, with the same number of cars in an evacuation, if you get more to an underused ramp, it speeds the whole thing up. So that was one important element that came from it. And the other one's just common sense, but we have absolutely hard data on this. Take one car, save the lives of those behind you. We ran this with 1.5, and 2 cars, and we could see substantial difference between 1 and 2 cars. So that message is going out to the community. And there's a bunch of other stuff, but that's not today's topic. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything to add? Nope. All right. Well, I'm impressed you guys did.
What I will add, though, is that Mill Valley has always been a leader when it comes to evacuations. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And the Google study was something that really amplified their planning capabilities to put together a comprehensive plan to improve the outflow of vehicles during a wildfire. And so we want to use this exercise in the level of planning coupled with Ladris AI that can duplicate the Google study and move that type of planning northwards through the county. So we've already been engaged with law enforcement in all of the communities, getting them connected with Ladris AI. But right now, they all need to be focused, but I'm really harping on the Ross Valley area right now, just kind of continuity, starting from the south and working north. So I was able to participate in a meeting with all of the law and fire agencies in the Ross Valley 2 months ago. So we've started the ball rolling on that level of planning and coordinate it through the Ross Valley.
Great.
As most of you should know, this week is Wildfire Prevention Week. So CAL FIRE is going up and down the entire state with press conferences and media events. And they did reach out to us a couple months ago and asked if Marin Wildfire, Marin County Fire, and whatever community we felt was going to be a good representative for Wildfire Prevention Week, and really focusing on Zone 0. That's the big emphasis for this year. So we were able to identify a community in San Rafael that is a Firewise community and also has a house that is a really good example of Zone 0. So we will be having a media event tomorrow, 11, on Ridgewood Drive in San Rafael, and then also take a peek at the San Rafael San Anselmo fuel reduction zone. So really looking forward to that. And in connection with Wildfire Prevention Week and ongoing outreach, Fire Safe Marin has prepared an 8-page pop-out for the Marin IJ online that really starts with, "This is Marin Wildfire," and then walks through everything that Marin through 8 pages. And I'm really excited about it coming out. I've seen a rough draft. We're still tweaking it, but later this month, early June, we'll start seeing some media outreach. It'll be a pop out for the online IJ, but we'll also be able to have physical copies. With that, I'll stop the screen share and take any questions.
Great. Thank you. Any questions? Julie?
Mark, what did that chart show for a year ago in Southern California, the fire prediction? Do you know?
Interesting.
I didn't tell you I was going to ask that, so sorry, but if you don't know, that's fine. I'm just wondering.
Let me dig into that. I don't, right now, I would go into this Southern region GAC to get that.
Yeah.
And I would have to find where they archived what January's was.
Okay. Thank you.
But I'll dig into that. That's an interesting question.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Yeah, related, Mark, thank you for a great report. On that report, I do recall that one of the findings last year regarding Southern California was that we had a wet spring, which a wet winter, which you have this year. I think we're up to normal now.
Two years in a row.
Yeah, 2 years in a row now. So the fine fuels grow, and then there's a long duration drought that dries out the vegetation, and then there's an event. And it seems to me that we could be set up again. I think again, for that kind of a scenario? I mean, what are your thoughts, Mark?
So, Southern California fire behavior is very much driven by the grass crop.
Yeah,
So if they don't have a grass crop, they don't tend to have much of a fire season. Whereas in the Sierras, we can have a fire season without a significant grass crop because of the timber fuel model. And so your observation of significant fires following a wet winter is normal for Southern California.
right. Okay. And then one question, thanks for coming and talking about your evacuation drills. You know, we invested separately in MWPA-wide ingress and egress assessment, extensive work on the hardscape and then maybe the softscape or the fixable things. And we've evaluated every segment of every road in Marin County for 1 to 5 as far as difficulty. And so Mark and Guess, would you ponder the relationship between the value of evacuation drill, an actual drill, and then the exercises that we invested in and the product that all of our members have right now to work with between law enforcement, public, and the other one. Anyway.
Well, and that's really what I'm trying to drive with
Okay.
With the lessons learned and the example that Mill Valley has provided us is use both the evacuation ingress egress risk assessment, but also the Ladris AI modeling so that we can start saying, all right, what does it look like if we do contraflow? What does it look like if we turn all the lights green? So yes, we are tapping into those resources and encouraging the rest of the communities to follow Mill Valley's lead.
And something with that, with the best practices, what we saw right away with the Lazarus AI technology, it updates every 15 minutes, right, of the conditions. And so 15 minutes is a long time too. And so for us, in our short period of time, it was there were some holes in it, right, that we wanted to tweak. So this is really good real-time info of like using it and going, okay, does this work for us in our situation? Or are there tweaks that we can make with Lazarus AI moving forward? So there's going to be some really good lessons learned, and it'll carry over to every other jurisdiction. Okay,
And then if I can daylight something that'll be coming out really soon is that, our message has been, we really want people to stay in their cars, but it's a scary thing for people to think about being in their cars while a road is being impacted by fire, and everyone has this emotional response and think the worst thoughts. But we know through research, people are not dying in their cars, but sometimes that's not enough to carry that message forward. So we're actually doing an evaluation that is going to be discussed as we work through our metrics and our measures of success for goal 2. We're calling it fire resilient roadways. And we're actually measuring the heat flux in relation to time to vehicles and the passengers within the vehicles. And we'll actually be able to graphically show which roadways are safe under hostile fire conditions while you're sitting in your car. And it's backed by science. And so I continue to be amazed every time I see this document and the dashboard and the visual representation that we'll have for that. So stay tuned for a month or 2 away.
So a couple of comments, if I may. First off, we never say safe. We always say safer.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's a good catch.
We're
there.
really careful about that.
Good catch with that.
Yeah, exactly. Just a couple of observations. A tool is just a tool, right? Ladris is good. Google was good. Google, by the way, was groundbreaking. It never happened on the planet. They did this for us because we encouraged them and I knew somebody there. So a tool doesn't get you to the end, right? A tool that says this is if this, then that. What you have to do is you have to sit down. We spent, I don't know, maybe 1,000 hours looking through things to come up with a solution which is unique to Mill Valley. It's not something you can move anywhere else. It's based on our topography and our patterns, et cetera. So having the tool is the first step. The second step is to get fire and police heavily engaged. Historically, police have said too many variables, we'll figure it out on the day of. That's not always a good idea. We've got a lot of advanced preparation, which we can now execute, and we learned it takes us longer than we thought it did. So that tool is very important. And then the ultimate component is when you socialize this so completely that it's not something sitting on a shelf. I've been very strong advocate for this, and if it doesn't happen for 20 years, I'd be happy, since I'm 70. But we wanted something that was alive, which would become automatic. And we're just at the first stages of that. So that's something that is moving forward. And then my final point is that as far as CRAs are concerned, community refuge areas, we historically had done this deal where we do a neighborhood, and a neighborhood practice would go to a CRA, right? So we taught people go to a CRA. That's not what you do, right? It's the last place you go. You only go there when there's no other place to go. And we've realized that, and we're trying to socialize that much more extensively now, along with take one car, save those behind you. The second point is, get the heck out as fast as you can. And if you can't get out, that's your last place to go, right? In fact, I understand other areas don't call it CRA. They have a different name for it.
I'm gonna hold for a second. I think we're
I'm running too
shifting.
far. Sorry.
Yep, we're shifting. Great conversation, and I appreciate it. But I think that this is going to come back to us other times, and we can have this full conversation. So I think we're going to hold off on. So sorry, John.
Oh, that's okay.
I know. I understand. We all go deep on some of these things. I just want to double check. Catherine, did you have a question?
I live in Tam Valley. I watched it. I didn't go participate. I'm really, I appreciate, this is the second drill you've had and your work with Google getting us there. I'm really interested in the outcome. I also think this is without panic. So we have to, realize that there's going to be a whole additional emotional element to all of this, but I'm really interested in seeing the results. Can we get those from you, Doug? Oh, great. Thank you so much.
The data included Tam Valley, included everybody east of the freeway, not just the city. Yeah.
There you go. Good to know. I have a question in terms of back to the weather conversation. Where we're at currently, is this allowing us, if we have on our to-do list prescribed burns, are we in the position that we're able to do those?
Yeah, it's not impacting it, no, I think because typically we wouldn't really start getting into prescribed burns and the light fuels until June. And me driving up and down 101 and watching the curing of the grass, I think we're on pace for timing wise.
Great. All right. Any other questions? No more questions. All right, great. Moving on, if there's public comment on this executive officer's report.
There are no hands at this time.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you. All right, we're moving on to consent calendar. Opportunity for the public to comment on the consent calendar.
And if staff could make one quick recommendation, we misidentified the chair in the minutes, so
Oh.
we'll correct that.
That's fine. Thank you. Okay. Any public comment on?
There are no hands at this time, and the minutes actually have been corrected to reflect the correct name in the chair.
There you go.
you.
Thank you. All right. There's,
So I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There we go. All right. All right, we're moving on. Action items. We have the Community Oversight Committee report from 23-24. And I first want to thank John, you and the team, and it's a lot of hours, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of, in retrospect, type of analysis. So really appreciate the time that you've spent on this and looking forward to sharing the report.
Yeah, and I'll echo my thanks. And if there's one person that gets to see how hard the COC works and how many hours they put into it, I'm one of those people. And I say this thank you every year. And I want everyone to know it's a heartfelt thank you, because I honestly believe the COC has increased the level of accountability that Marin Wildfire provides over taxpayers' dollars. They have made us a better organization. Thank you, John.
And Martina sees a lot of it too. So as I was leaving this morning, my wife said to me, John, you always talk too fast. So slow down, don't fire hose everybody, and start with a pun. Okay, that's as funny as I ever get. All right. I'm a CPA. By those standards, it's hilarious. Okay. So I have 3 topics I'm going to cover, and I can do this. I timed it, so I won't go on too crazy and it won't take that long. So first I want to talk about is the scope of the COC review, kind of what we do. The second part is what our findings are in the operational area. And then the third part is our financial observations. So what does the COC do? So as you know, we have three major areas: core, DSpace, and local. We do a risk analysis to start, and we start with core. And our view on core is that its risk is relatively lower. A lot of eyes on core. We observe that the COC attends the usually by video, but it attends the ATC meetings, the Ops Committee, Finance, Executive, Board of Directors meetings. We're well aware that there are purchasing, check issuance, and whistleblower policies. We don't review these. This is not an audit. Like I would go into it as a CPA like that, but that's not what we're doing. We're doing a higher level thing. And we also see that the 17 jurisdictions are all competing for funds, right? That creates control because there's a lot of eyes on that money, and we think that's good. So last year, what we did, the year before rather, is we read through all the all the core projects to see whether they all looked right and whether anything jumped out at us. This year, we changed things up a little bit, and I'm going to say this year when it's always 10 months ago. This year, what we did is we decided to look at the lowest 1/3 of expenditures. The idea being that they will have less eyes on them. So what we did is we went through and looked at every one of those items. We examined the invoices. We read the documents to make sure they're consistent with the measure. Most of our expenditures were third-party expenditures, but there were some limited staff costs associated with that also, and we took a look at that. We would have to say that going through all these expenses, in the written document, we indicated that we were impressed by the executive officer's alacrity. It became very clear to us that he knows this stuff inside and out, and there is a lot of focus on that. So that's the core element. Next element is local. What we do with local, we consider that higher risk. You don't have the competition, right? The money just goes 20% to each jurisdiction. There it goes. It also could be quiet within the jurisdiction itself, right? Because it could be a small part of a bigger value. So we think that that one is an area that we need to look into a little more carefully. The first couple of years, things are kind of rough in terms of both data collection and oversight by MWPA, because it's not just a pass-through. You don't just give them the money. You have to make sure it's well spent. The last couple of years has become much tighter. And the last couple of years, we've been doing basically the same thing. Each year, we look at 5 agencies, right? So 5 a year ago and 5 this cycle. So that's, we're getting there. Next year, we'll have hit 15 of the 17. We want to confirm that each individual project adheres to the JPA agreement. We focus on the higher level of service. We know there's an attestation for that. I'll have a comment on the records in a minute. We look at a particular focus on allocation of costs between MWPA and other uses. There'll be a comment there also, and we make sure all the financial data hangs together. The third area is DSpace. Pretty impressed by DSpace. It has evolved. You have your DSA, I love that, DSpace Alliance. You have your Santa Fe Marin Wildfire group, and then you have your Nevada Fire District group. They're all fully dedicated staff. They're either part-time or full-time. Each group does it a little bit differently, which I think is kind of interesting because you're learning from that. We made sure that the cost appeared appropriate and reasonable. We looked at the data. We ran through all the data. It's very impressive, as I'm sure you guys are well aware. And it's based on capitated costs by individual home, and they know exactly how many homes they looked at in each area. So that's what we did there. And so those are my comments on the scope of our work. If there's no questions, I'll move on to our findings. Okay, as far as findings are concerned, first, good news, we had no new findings this last cycle. The organization's in its 4th year. It's much more mature at this point. And frankly, we're more mature in terms of the COC as to how we look at things. That's good. But we always follow up on our prior year findings. Okay, so there were 13 findings in the prior year. Of those 13 findings, 9 of them have either been implemented or staff has given us a response which we felt was reasonable relative to our thoughts, and those are all closed. Okay, so 9 to 13. So there's 4 left. Now, for the 4 left, first thing is that the report took over a year. Okay, so the year was closed in our prior year report, and therefore some of those things you couldn't get to them because the year had gone. And by the way, this year we're on a 10th month. It was almost our 9th month, and I think we're going to get even faster next year. We're really working hard on accelerating this. So there were 4 comments left. And Mark, you can just jump in after I talk about each one if you wish. The first thing was we said, look, local expenditures are not a simple pass-through. We felt that while the board is extensively involved in core, they should at least on an annual basis review all the local expenditures just to make sure that they believe that they're consistent and that to the extent there is some duplicativeness, like in the area of grants, et cetera, that they're aware of all that. And he said he was going to do it in the next cycle.
That's correct. And so the board does receive the project proposals for local and D-space when the work plan is approved. When we've been closing the books, we've been doing a detailed dive into core projects, but we had not been showing closure to the board for local and D-space. That recommendation makes a ton of sense. The exec committee and the board recommended supporting that, but it was after we'd already closed books for that fiscal year. So when we close this current fiscal year, we will do exactly that.
Okay, so the next observation dealt with level of service. You remember in the agreement itself, the JPA agreement and the measure, that it was required that any MWPA money be spent to create a higher level of service. The idea is that certain cities already had spent money on things like, fire mitigation or whatever, but the MWPA money was to be incremental. So there's two steps to that. One is an attestation, which each senior executive gives us, and we noted that those are all there. The second thing is you have to know what the level of service was before the measure was passed to determine that there is indeed a higher level of service. The status of that is that the staff will complete it soon.
And we're about 75% done. We'll get that completed prior to the closeout of this next project or fiscal year.
Okay, next one is issue number 10. Number 10 deals with the use of police in connection with the Rangers. I'm just going to read this one. It's just easier if I read it, I think. So the recommendation was that the police rangers in all likelihood perform other police tasks beyond ignition reduction. COC believes that the JPA expenditure should be used for ignition reduction only. We suggest that a formal report be given to the board describing all ranger activities and how the expenditures are allocated between JPA and other activities. Response by staff, there will be a report. COC response, staff made a presentation to the board on February 20th, 2025. The presentation displayed the significant value the dedicated officers provide to the communities served. The board did not discuss the specifics of how or whether to allocate expenditures between the JPA and the jurisdiction's costs after the presentation. 100% of these costs are being covered by the MWPA currently. So the COC notes that these are armed, trained police officers, and the COC continues to believe that they are in all likelihood performing other police tasks beyond ignition reduction, and that costs should be allocated rather than fully recovered by Marin Wildfire. There is a baseline effort that any city would expect from their police services that should be considered when addressing the requirement that reimbursements achieve a higher level of service. Other jurisdictions also use swarm officers to patrol homeless encampments without reimbursement by Marin Wildfire. In addition, these patrols occur year-round. The risk of wildfire ignition is greatly diminished during the rainy season. We acknowledge a staff statement that a precise allocation of costs based on some sort of study would be difficult. We consider the recommendation open and requiring COC follow-up until such time as the board makes a specific formal decision about any cost sharing, about levels of cost sharing. So that's the status of that one.
And I think you guys were all present for the presentation that we had from Santa Fe and Novato. And the staff agrees that there was no decision made by the board in that moment. And the game plan was that, so when the work plan for 25, 26 comes to the board with two projects that include rangers for the open space patrols and for homeless encampments, that would be the opportunity for the board to say, okay, we are, and I think of it in three categories. The board can say, all right, we are comfortable with 100% funding in the model that we are following, with the acknowledgement that, yes, we understand that there could be some benefit outside of wildfire, but we're comfortable with that. And our distribution, our policies actually allow for that. And I use LRAD as an example. We are funding 100% of the implementation of LRAD that's going in, but LRAD is likely to have a benefit outside of the wildfire space. You as the board have said we are comfortable with that collateral benefit occurring with Marin Wildfire. The middle of the road is that we could take an estimation of, all right, their work is 90-10, their work is 80-20, their work is 60-40, or whatever that is, and we can make that estimation. And then the board can say, all right, when these projects come up, we would like to see this percentage of a cost share. So that's the middle of the road approach that we could take. And then, and what John has acknowledged, a very detailed line by line approach probably would not be worthwhile in the effort, but it is an option, so we should discuss it. I do want to point out that when for both programs, San Rafael and Novato, if that ranger is working some other detail outside of their typical wildfire prevention, they are not being billed to that same account. They're, let's say it's training or it's overtime and patrol. They're being paid by the city when they do that. Yes.
Can I ask a question? What's the magnitude of the costs for the rangers that MWPA is paying for? Do we know?
Yeah. For the Nevada Fire Mitigation Ranger Program, it's $250,000 from their DSpace budget. And for the San Rafael, $276,000.
Can we bring this to the board now for discussion?
Yeah.
John, do you had more to cover?
No, the only thing I would say is that I believe that the connection, is personal opinion, the connection between LRADs and fire prevention is very substantial. I believe when you have sworn police officers dealing with encampments that for which there is a benefit certainly associated with fire, that it's a more tenuous connection, particularly in February. We as a group had talked about various ways to propose an allocation percentage. One of us of the six at that point was reasonable, felt that full recovery was okay. The other five felt that it should be an allocation and that some level of expenditure for MWPA was worthwhile. And we all agreed that it was a very impactful, important effort that's occurring. It's just a question of how much of it should come out of MWPA budget as compared to local city budget.
Appreciate the update. Thank you. I would like to take it back to the exec team to discuss and make a recommendation that we could then bring forward to the full board as we had the presentation, because I know as the COC is going to go back again, this continues to come up, and it'd be nice to provide direction to the COC where we're going with this. So Bruce, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, I think it's a complicated subject. I think it's a great question, questioning the value of work in February, for example, in visiting an encampment. An analogy I would use is that we do our planning in the winter for treatments in the summer for vegetation management, for example. So, I mean, there's value there. I'm not here to educate, but I did inquire with my fire marshal on this question and the potential for cost share. And I just want to be clear that I've found out that we receive quarterly reports from our ranger that chronicle day-by-day activities, and they apportion them between wildfire prevention and or police, public health and safety. And so the decision is being made at between the police team and the fire district as far as what we should pay for already. We're making that determination at the local level already. I'm not sure you're aware of that. So as we have a discussion as far as what the options are, and I have not taken a look at the work plan and how much detail there is in the description of the request to fund that project. But I do think, clear specifics in regards to what the project is, what the person is, what they're going to do, and what systems are in place to assure compliance with wildfire prevention as opposed to police activities could assuage a lot of the concerns here. I've done the digging, I've took it apart, and I think that there's an alternative here that we should consider.
We were under the impression, and maybe it's incorrect, but we were under the impression that 100% of the officer's salary was being covered by MWPA, whether they're doing police or fire prevention.
That's not
activities.
correct.
Is that correct or not correct?
That's not correct in Novato.
When they are on patrol in the open space, we are funding that. But if they do something that's outside of the patrol of the open space, then we are not funding that.
So when they're in the open space and NWPA is dealing with conflagration type wildfires, and so it's a low fire day, it's been raining for 3 weeks, they go to that site and they're doing all the things that you do when you're dealing with homeless people, because that's a complicated topic, and certainly there are elements beyond creating a conflagration. When they're on that site, 100% of those costs are paid for by MWPA.
That's correct. And John and I definitely have had these conversations about the value of the work during the winter. But I actually do find the work during the winter valuable because it's not just the ignition reduction that they are causing by actually going out there during the summertime, but it's during the wintertime. It's either removal of camps from high hazard areas or education on how to have these encampments be fire safe. And that education that happens in February in a pouring down rainy day can still have benefits in the summer. And if we are not doing that similar type of patrol during the wintertime, then the encampments return back to the high hazard areas. And then we have to turn around and remove them again during the fire season. So I actually do see value during the wintertime operations.
And if I just may add, in Novato's situation, we just closed a public encampment in the downtown Lee Gerner Park. And it was funded. I forget how many folks were there. We closed it because of recent judicial determinations that we in fact can do that. And we can say that some places we don't want you there. This is dynamic. It's like an amoeba. These folks are moving from opportune place to opportune place to opportune place. And we see a lot going on that regardless of season, there are things that affect the need to understand, monitor, track, and record and educate, engage, and then identify, work that needs to be done. So I think it's hard. I think it's ill-advised to just think about this simplistically and seasonally. I think we need to really dig into what is the nature of the work, what they're doing, regardless of season, that it in fact does define as wildfire prevention or it is in fact police enforcement and code compliance.
Can I chime in for San Rafael? So I also had a conversation with with Quinn and the team within San Rafael, and we also heard the presentations that were done here. And I think that this goes into that area of I'm going to take the recommendation from our professionals and absolutely, and I understand the question, and I always appreciate the COC bringing up the question, but we have heard that this is an important part of the way San Rafael is going to manage and implement the wildfire mitigation work that needs to be done. And so I think that from our perspective, and just, I mean, if I recall, the sentiment around the room was very, very positive I remember Catherine Way, Director Way from Larkspur saying, how can we get you to come over? So, I mean, it is it's an important tool that San Rafael's been able to implement, and it's been their decision from the funding perspective, be able to use it that way. And I can tell you that it is our homeless, community in San Rafael, it's 24/7, 365 days. So, and we need to be able to ensure public safety for the broader community as well as within the homeless community.
And if I can expand a little bit on, there is a semblance of a cost share within Santa Fe right now. A portion of the 276 is going towards the 80 or 90% of the ranger's time. And then the other portion of that 276 is going for about 10% of that ranger's supervisor's time. So there is a semblance of a cost share in there.
Catherine, thank you.
I just want to, the presentation that we got from the person who is in the police or our ranger, actually be going into the encampments, making friends with the people, rearranging their living arrangements with their permission, taking out propane tanks, helping them to set up a much more fire-safe existence while they are there. To me, that has a great deal of value. So, you know, I appreciate again what you've brought up, but sometimes it's not just dollars and cents specifically because fires don't have boundaries. I feel safer in my community knowing that somebody is working with the homeless while they're there and posing a threat to change things so they won't pose a threat while they're there. So that's just my opinion.
Julie?
I guess from where I'm coming from, and thank you for the presentation and all your work. I know it's been a lot. I think we should delve into this a little bit more because we're coming up on renewal of the tax measure, and I don't want people who are potentially voting on this tax measure to think, well, why is Marin Wildfire paying for homeless encampments that aren't necessarily tied directly to wildfire mitigation? So I would be in favor of staff, you are so knowledgeable and have the contacts, delving in a little bit more with Novato and with San Rafael and coming up with some kind of an allocation. I don't want to go line by line. That's way too detailed and tedious, but I think there needs to be some kind of optic to show, you know, 80% is wildfire mitigation, but 20% is behavioral or whatever other buckets there are. So I think that might be a good way to address the COC's comment and also ensure that our taxpayer dollars are being segregated for wildfire mitigation and prevention.
If I support the digging into it and better understanding what it is the fire rangers are doing on their time and how what constitutes wildfire prevention work as opposed to civic enforcement. I'm opposed to a random cost share, but but I would say that I'm supportive of clarity that work that's being performed as wildfire prevention is being paid for by MWPA, and work that is civic, police work is being paid for by the police department. Novato could say X percent last year, 87% was MWPA and 13. We can do that work. We have that data. So I wouldn't want it to be arbitrary, but I would want it to be task oriented. And documentation that an assurance that those responsible for that type of work are paying for that type of work and no one inappropriately.
Mark, in the terms of the reporting that the rangers do, would some of that answer some of those questions?
I believe so. And San Rafael and Novato have been working together to align and make their reporting consistent. And I do have visibility to that reporting. And I do want to add that John and I worked really hard to be able to get this packet to you guys today to have this exact conversation that we are having. And then also so we can have this exact conversation with the board. Fully on board with a deep dive into it. But that is coming to the board in a week. So an accurate analysis may be difficult. However, but I do believe the board can push that forward with a caveat that says, all right, we're moving it forward like this, but be prepared for an adjustment after we do the analysis if that adjustment is warranted. Does that work for you guys?
Yeah, I would like to see parties commit to. I would like to see the San Rafael and Novato commit to a full accounting for the system in place to account for what that time is that what is wildfire prevention and what is police and how they're apportioning, making sure that nothing's being inappropriately funded by MWPA.
Okay.
I'm hopeful that I hear you, I understand it, and I think it's really important. I questioned this myself as two-term president. I thought this was a wild idea, but it's turned out to be a great and very effective idea. But we have to be responsive and we have to spend our money appropriately. It has to be WP, period.
Yeah, so if I could close on this particular topic, these COC, I believe at this point has a very strong understanding that we are not the board, and the board makes board decisions, and our job is just to look out from the taxpayer perspective at a high level. Our request here is a formal board conclusion on this question. We did not say this, that, or the other. We debated giving you some specific recommendations regarding methods that could be employed, but we said it's not our job. Let's let you guys do that. The only other point I would like to make is that the enabling documents make it clear that you have to provide a higher level of service, and that police in their role in all of our 17 jurisdictions, unfortunately, are maybe it's fortunate, are dealing with unhoused people and are providing interaction with them on a variety of topics. And yeah, I think you need to consider the higher level of service question when you decide, what's going on, because you have two cities doing it now. It was one city and it became two cities. He can tell you, as a city manager who's always trying to find a place for a budget, you're going to have 17 cities pretty quickly hitting the MWTA budget for elements of their interaction with homeless. So with that, thank you. All we're looking for is a conclusion. You guys make the conclusion. We don't. So I have one more element from the prior year, if I can move on, if that's okay.
Before we just move on to that one, I just want to make sure there's clarity in terms of the next step, that we're going to be able to use existing reporting that's available, not creating an additional layer of work.
Correct.
Okay. Is everyone okay with that? That we're not, we'll use what's existing. Great. Yeah, please.
So I don't think any of us is qualified to come up with an appropriate allocation. So we would be relying on staff to come up with maybe one or two options that the board could discuss. And,
Absolutely.
we don't want to put more administrative burden on the staff. So I would aim for something that's simple but effective.
And to echo what Rachel just said, the reporting is already there. I think we have the data there. We just need to do the analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And our comment was exactly along those lines. We felt that we said that if you acknowledge the staff statements that a precise allocation of costs based on some sort of study would be difficult. We agree. It just has to appear reasonable to the voter, right? Is it 50-50? Is it 80-20? You guys figure it out. But I personally find that hard to say I'm paying for 100% of an armed police officer interacting with homeless people through this budget. So.
And it might be different in San Rafael versus Novato.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. All right, great. Thank you.
Next.
Thanks.
Okay, so one more, and this is relatively straightforward. We always focus on employee costs, and particularly for the very same reason that we're doing our last conversation. As a former mayor and city council member, I know how difficult it is to allocate budget and to find places for budget. And when you see employee costs that are being reimbursed by the MWPA, we always want to keep an eye on it to make sure they're not doing 10% of their work and getting reimbursed 50% of their work, right? So we are aware that there is the recommendation notice that there are employee cost shares that are listed in the detailed data that talk about who's 100%, who's this and that. And we understand well that the board has extremely detailed knowledge of who all these people are. So our suggestion we made in the prior year was that there'd be a formal approval of those percentages. And your response was?
We can, what I do is each year when there are positions allocated, I send a letter to that agency saying, these are the positions that are allocated. Tell me how much of their time is, how many employees do you have in that position? What's their length of service for this fiscal year? How much of their time is committed to Marin Wildfire? And then I get a response back from each of those member agencies. And what we can do to make it even easier, so you don't have to go into my records to the response letters that I get from each of those agencies, we can actually add a column to on our spreadsheets for any of the positions and put that ratio in there.
And so the board would approve that?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so that's the part two, right? I gave you the scope. I gave you our operational observations. The final section is financial. So I don't know all of you. I'm a CPA. I was a partner with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and therefore I'm the guy with the nail, the hammer and the nail thing, right? So I've always had a focus when serving my public clients of analytical procedures being a very important tool. Most boards get a full package of analytical procedures every quarter when they look at a set of public company financial statements to see whether everything hangs together. I took that approach in connection with all the data which was provided to us, because there's a lot of data which goes into our report. So we have within the report, our COC report, an indication of how much rollover there is within each group. So your 220% are given to your 17 jurisdictions. MWPA keeps hard track of how much money is spent and how much money is still restricted but unspent. That data is there, and we're also well aware of that 80% test. I was actually pretty involved in that creation with Katie Rice and Matthew Heimel back in the time that this was all occurring. And that is also within the report that says, okay, how much money has been spent? Well, we did a top-down review that said, okay, there's only so much tax revenues. They should fall in those three buckets. All these elements should all add up together. Turned out the data did not come together completely. I've got a draft of this document. We're hoping to get it out next Monday or Tuesday. Numbers moved as a result of that review. While I would say in general, as an accountant, I've been very impressed by the accounting systems that have been put in place here. I didn't do a full review of them, but just in touching them in connection with this work, pretty strong to set up a $20 million company in a short period of time and do it in a lean way and have it all come together and work. So that's a very good thing. This particular component of looking at it from the top down had not occurred previously. Elisa now gets what I was trying to get at. I would suspect that you will start getting reports of this type in the future. If this was earlier in the process, we probably would have made a formal comment on how things were a little rough here. But as this didn't occur until we had our final meetings and finished the workup, and with a very anxious need to get this report out, I'm only making a casual individual comment, not representing the whole COC, but I think that could have become a little bit tighter there. Now it's all come together pretty good. So what you'll see in the COC report is a couple of things. We have the total unspent fund data in terms of, we've collected roughly $80 million, 20 times 4, right? And there's $17.5 million that have yet to be spent at this point. And it was mostly generated in year 1 and 2. You'll see in year 3 and 4, you're spending almost all the money that's come in. So you've almost got caught up. And we note in our report, our support that you were not spending money until you were ready to spend it. That's a very good thing. And we saw that core this year, you actually outspent the year's results to get some of the backlog burned off, which we think is a good thing. So the $17.5 million that has yet to be spent, core represents 11 million of it, local represents 2.5, and DSpace represents 4. So DSpace is about a year's worth, core is about a half a year's worth. We don't have any particular comments on those levels of spend, just to be aware of it. As far as core is concerned, that's 11 million bucks. There was a little bit of a surprise within everybody that we were still not quite there. We now have an understanding that the board has made a decision that you have a $4 million reserve that relates to the fact that, you don't get the money until halfway through the year, right? And you got to keep the lights on. I'm not second guessing that. I can just tell you individually as a personal comment, if administration is supposed to be only 10%, well, 10% of 20 million is 2 million. And if you get your money halfway through the year, that means you maybe only need $1 million. I think 4 is a little high, but no comment on that, because you're soon to be spending everything that comes in. So just food for thought there towards the end of the 8-year term.
Todd, as you know, your no comment is a comment.
Well, it's a personal comment, not a.
No, I understand.
Yeah, right.
I understand. And I think we will be having a conversation on the reserve. So
Yeah. The next one is 3 million restricted. That seems totally prudent to us. So that leaves you about 4 to 5 million left to go. And each year you're spending that down. As far as the 80% test is concerned, as you know, each district is expected at the end of year 5 to get back at least 80% of what they put in. That's a minimum, there's no maximum, because obviously if everyone does 80, someone's going to do more than 100, right? Where we are at this point is that Central Marin is about 400,000 short of the 80% as of last year. San Rafael is about 700,000 short. Southern Marin is about 600,000 short. West is very close, 8 million. And Nevada, which has done a lot of really good things, I have to say, has exceeded that 80% number. So we just laid that out. And hopefully by the end of June, you will have caught those numbers back up and you will meet the test for all 5 zones. Well, I guess we'll find out. And that is the extent of our review and our findings, and we'll take any final questions.
Great, thank you.
Where is that last data in your report? Is it?
It will be in the COC report when we publish it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Right. And I'm not sure whether you were getting that in your board reports or not.
We do, we have the attachment. It's on page 6 of the attached.
And then that table is part of our fiscal year closeout when they receive it.
Okay, and that table had errors in it.
Yeah.
When I did the 100% top down, we found errors.
So when we have talked about the unspent and the rollover amounts, we have asked, why are we in that situation? What's going on? And a lot of it has to do with timing in terms of when work can be done,
Exactly.
as well as the approvals, the legal approvals to be able to do the work. So I think over time, that is sort of the nature of it. Ideally, we receive allocation and it's all spent that year, but I don't know if that's a realistic expectation. And I was wondering, Mark, can you speak to that a little?
Well, for the 4 million rolling reserve, it's not just for Marin Wildfire staff, but it's actually for projects that are being implemented. So that's why the 4 million we need. That's why I feel like we need to have the 4 million, because we're still through July 1 through December. We are still doing a lot of vegetation management projects that we are getting invoiced for. So that's what the purpose is for the 4 million restricted rolling reserve. As Rachel mentioned, for the 3 million restricted reserve, we're going to be doing an analysis of that if that number is too high at our finance committee. And staff's opinion is that we are about 900,000 too high in that, and we'll be bringing that.
Yeah, CSC had no comments on the status at this point. We just have accumulated all the data at this point.
I appreciate that. Other questions, comments?
Just comment. Thank you so much. The detail is incredible. Can't wait to see the report. We do, as you know, get reports from Alicia. At least I do, and I think Mayor Burke did, and every month, and exactly where we stand as far as our projects and what's being spent and what isn't being spent. So it's there. The data is there.
Yeah, the COC had observed, as I mentioned earlier, all the activities that occur within the organization, and that is part of the way we decided what to look at, right? And we didn't look at core all that much because we found that it's well controlled and a lot of eyes are on things. So, and I'm very happy to say that we only have updates and no new findings this year. So
Very good. Thank you.
And if I could just close out with a comment that, well, the way the language is written, a lot of their work is retrospective in nature, but because of our close interaction, there's actually been a lot of forward-leaning iterative changes that we have made because of this involvement. So again, I'll echo or repeat that they have made us a better organization through their work.
And there are 9 people that were involved.
Absolutely.
For half of the year. Anyway.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Any follow-on questions before we go to public comment? Martina, are there any questions on this item?
There are currently no hands at this time.
Okay. Bringing it back. Good. All right. Thank you very much.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
to the whole team.
I don't have a closing joke.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. All right. We are on to the work plan, which is a good segue. Mark, you going to kick us off with this?
You bet. This is everything that we're about, right? Is this work plan. John, thank you. But, and so it's hard to believe this is our sixth work plan that we're putting together. And John mentioned a word that I'm going to probably mention a few times, and that's the maturity of the organization and what we've been learning. But we definitely cannot go much further into this conversation about the work plan without a thank you to all of Marin Wildfire staff, all of the member agency staff, the ATC, the operations committee. So many hours have been put towards this. And remember that it's only the Marin Wildfire staff that 100% of our time is focused on wildfire. Our 17 member agencies, their staff oftentimes have other responsibilities. So we're tasking them with this work on top of a lot of their regular duties. Although some of the positions are fully funded by Marin Wildfire, so they are 100% us at that, but that's not the rule across the board. So a big thank you to the ATC. Members outside of the ATC within the member agencies are also doing work. And then the level of commitment, the thoughtfulness, and the deep dives that our operations committee took as we worked through this work plan. And I'll do want to point out that this was the first year that the ATC was not a Brown Act committee. And that was a purposeful change in the JPA language because we felt that having them be a Brown Act committee tied their hands up quite a bit when it came to cross-jurisdictional collaboration, which is exactly what the Marin Wildfire is supposed to be about, is cross-jurisdictional collaboration. And we, because they were a Brown Act committee, ran the risk of serial meetings by them collaborating outside of that workspace. And so we had to create ad hoc subcommittees, which impacted their time and almost doubled the number of meetings that they had. I think we were able to cut the ATC's time commitment in half and still have profound work come from them. So I want to applaud the board for making that purposeful change to GAPA. And again, this process led by Ann started back in November, and you know how well Ann has it on the tracks and it's organized, and every meeting starts with, this is our timeline, this is where we're at in that timeline, and this is how we're going to end. And so we are on track. And then I'm looking at Todd Cusimano as vice chair of the ops committee, who will be able to offer any thoughts that they had and share insight of the profound conversations and some very deep dives in topics. And with no further ado, I'm going to do a screen share because I think some of this discussions will be easier while we look at dollars, right? Look at the actual dollar signs and stuff on the screen. And so, and I think my little picture of me, not that you guys really want to look at me, but is blocking some of the numbers. So I shrunk it down a little bit. I hope that works for you. We have, as you may remember, the Finance Committee and the board approved a 2.7% cost of living adjustment based on the CPI for the February CPI. So what we normally do is that we take last year's revenue, and since we're a very stable revenue source, and that's square footage of building space, and since there's not a lot of new growth in Marin, it's really easy for us to project what our revenue is going to be. We add that 2.7%, and that comes up to $22,838,035. And then we know that 60% of that is what we're really talking about when we have the work plan. The administrative framework has already been approved. So 60%, and then 10% of that is our core or our administrative budget. So that's 60% of 22 is at 13 million. 10% of that for our admin is 1.3 million. And then we first plan the JPA-wide projects. And again, we want to acknowledge the inherent competition between JPA-wide projects, because the bigger the JPA-wide projects are, the less money that's available to go to each of the 5 zones. So let's acknowledge that, because that's going to be a good portion of our conversation today and next week when we bring to the board. So the JPA-wide projects, and I'm going to scroll forward in a little bit to an analysis or a detail of all of the JPA-wide projects, and we can go line by line on those. That's 5.7 million. That leaves 6.5 million for the zones, and then the local is 4.5 million that gets distributed based on the ratios that we have established before to each of the member agencies. D-Space is now a full 20%, not minus the 2% abatement, because we did away with the abatement fund simply because nobody was using the abatement fund. So if you look down at that next table, you see the revenue ratios, which we do an analysis each year. The last 3 years, the ratios have not changed. Central Marin is steady at 23%, West Marin 6%, Novato 26%, San Rafael 27%, and Southern Marin 18%. And then you see what, after we subtract out the JPA wide, you see how much is going based on the proposed work plan, how much is going back to each of the zones. And it is a slight increase from last year's JPA or zone balances. Now I'm going to fast forward through my screen, so I suggest you not look at the screen share, otherwise you might get dizzy, to the right table that we can start digging into the JPA wide projects. Fortunately, it's the last page, so I can just scroll down to the last and then bring it up. I just didn't want to make you guys dizzy as we go through this. And I'm trying to get it to the resolution where we can all see it well. Do you guys see that all right?
Is this in the staff report too?
It is. It's one of the, it's not in the staff report, it's in one of the attachments.
People who have challenges with their seeing.
So up at the, and I'll just work line by line through this so that we don't bounce around on this table. The first one is a regional wildfire preparedness coordination. It's $65,000. It's going towards the Office of Emergency Management. It's not funding a single position. It's funding a host of services that is provided by OEM when it comes to wildfire preparedness. And a good portion of that work is through Ready Marin and also some of our public messaging. Brand new, and this is a continuing item and an item that's is same as last year, but it's a decrease from the previous year. Last year was 65,000. Year before that was a 90,000 commitment. And we're looking at a trajectory of decreasing that next year, but they weren't able to decrease it this year. The next one is Ember Stomp, and that is a new item that has not been in the JPA-wide budget before. And so that is one of the reasons why the JPA-wide budget did go up and was one of the deep dives that we had with the Operations Committee. Ember Stomp we are entering our 4th year of Ember Stomp.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will, this year, September, will be our 4th year of Ember Stomp. And the positioning has been, it's been more of a Fire Safe Marin event, although none of Fire Safe Marin's funding from Marin Wildfire was paying for that. It was all through philanthropic donations, but also through contributions from the fire agencies. So none of the Marin Wildfire funding towards Fire Safe Marin has ever paid for Ember Stomp. A lot of questions that I would get as the executive officer is, why is Fire Safe Marin up front on Ember Stomp rather than Marin Wildfire being up front, with Fire Safe Marin being in the supportive role? So this year we are making a conscious switch in that posturing. Marin Wildfire will be pushed up front in regard to Ember Stomp, and Fire Safe Marin will be in that supportive role. 150,000 is what we anticipate to pay based on the vendors that we bring in. We use Red Barn Productions to manage it. They're also the people that manage the fair. But we were still going off after philanthropic contributions. And so whatever the 150 is the cap, but if we receive 50,000 in philanthropic, then we will refund that 50,000 back into the zones based on their percentage. And I'll make my math easy. Let's say we come up with 100,000 in philanthropic. That means 26,000 goes back to Novato, 27,000 goes back to San Rafael, so on and so forth. And we would work with those zones to find out what project they would have that go back into. Yes.
So this means that last time it was Fire Safe Marin that paid for it?
It was all philanthropic contributions.
All philanthropic.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And all philanthropic plus contributions from individual member agencies. With now that we are putting this $150,000 line item, we will not be asking the city of Mill Valley to contribute to Ember Stomp. We will not be asking Novato Fire District to contribute to Ember Stomp, which we have done in the past.
And we believe that events like this grow every year because of the popularity, as a, when you start an event, that it grows continually, right?
That's true. However, the cost would be the same if we have 5,000 people attending versus 8,000 people attending.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no more questions on that, the next line item is our Genesis evacuation management platform, as well as Ladris AI. The cost stays steady for those subscriptions at $208,600. The next one is a new JPA-wide project proposal, which we haven't had in the past, and that is for a new community wildfire protection plan. As a reminder, the last one that we've had was in 2020. It's recommended that we update our CWPP every 5 to 10 years, so we are on pace to update this at 5 to 6 years. One of the reasons why we need to have a new CWPP is, first of all, it's a requirement for grants. If you want grants, you have to have a current CWPP. Second of all, the change in the way CWPPs are made and used has dramatically changed since the last one in 2020. That was state of the art at the time, but it was a snapshot of 2019. The way we've designed a new CWPP, it's going to be updated as we do work. The recommendations that are in the CWPP will be updated, and it'll be a living document rather than being, this is what we looked like in 2019. And it was always envisioned that Marin Wildfire would be the new funding source. When we made Marin Wildfire back in 2020, it was acknowledged that Marin Wildfire would be the funding source for that. In years past, no fire agency has ever contributed any money whatsoever towards previous CWPPs. The 2016 and the 2020 were fully grant funded. So there had never been an expenditure from the fire agencies. We are bookmarking 300,000 just because it's the appropriate accounting for us, but we are going after 2 different grants to fund this. One grant is federal, so we always have, right now in this environment, there's a little bit of concern about going after federal funding, but we are also going after a state grant as well. And so again, if we receive that grant funding, then it'll be retroactive back into the zones relative to their percentage. We just felt it was better accounting on our end to put a placeholder for that 300,000 rather than going with a hope that we're going to get the grant funding. The next spot is our environmental compliance, and you'll see the term reduced next to it. There's 2 reasons for that reduction. Number one is that word maturing that we talked about. We have matured. We have established practices that are creating streamlining efforts that decrease the amount of effort that we're having to put towards each individual project in regards to environmental compliance. We have the governor's exemption that we feel is going to decrease some of our environmental costs. And we wanted to be able to put extra money towards West Marin. And so we identified a $100,000 reduction that was available through the environmental compliance. And just keep that idea of West Marin hanging off to the side. We'll cover that at the end. Our operational costs have been pretty much steady. Those are paying the rent here, upgrades to our facilities. Our biggest change in that was our insurance. We had been paying $7,000 a year for insurance. Now we're paying about $80,000 a year for insurance. So that was a significant increase, but also we are well covered now, and I feel so much better because of that. But otherwise, we were able to make other reductions that the operational costs have remained fairly flat. One of the biggest, and there's going to be a robust conversation, is the increase, a 30% increase to the Fire Safe Marin budget. And that's where we definitely had some deep dives at the ATC level and at the operations committee, because I'll be honest with you, when I heard about a 30% increase in Fire Safe Marin, I'm like, what? You're going to have to show me why this is the case. And I think I maybe even said, hey, we need to sharpen the pencil a little bit. And so Fire Safe Marin was able to sit down with me and describe why these are needed. We've had these same conversations with the operations committee, and after significant conversations, when we brought the work plan proposal to the operations committee on May 1st, and we voted on it with this increase, it was unanimously supported by the ops committee. And if you're ready to take the deep dive into Fire Safe Marin now before we go to the rest of the JPA wide, I'm happy to do that, or we can go through the rest of the JPA wide.
I think we should go through the rest and then we can go back. But I'm just looking at this table. The two columns are the same. So we're not seeing that were they supposed to be the same?
That's a remnant of a previous draft. We modified the core budget based on the reductions from core, from chipper, from environmental compliance, and then the addition of the coastal project. And so you can ignore the right-hand column.
Okay.
But it would be helpful if you're going to do this with the board, to have that last column reflect the prior year so
Yes.
that we can.
We will do.
Right.
Yeah, because you're
thank you,
speaking
'cause
to the change, but we're not seeing, yeah, thank
we'll
you.
make sure that's in there.
I
Okay.
think it's in there's a chart in your
Staff
staff
report.
report that
Right.
reflects that, but
Yes.
it's not up here. Thank you.
Todd? Oh, yeah, we'll make sure, we'll make sure that's fixed. So we'll go through the rest of the JPA wide and then circle back to Fire Safe Marin. As you can see, our grant program is steady at 900,000. We worked quite a bit with the ATC. This was one of the benefits of the ATC not being a Brown Act committee. We were able to take a really deep dive into the grant proposals, and it was unanimously supported to decrease the grant amount going to the residents so we can increase the people that are receiving grants. And based on a recent presentation that you guys will be seeing soon, the data of our resolutions based on grants supports actually decreasing the amount so that we can increase the number of people that have access to it because of the synergistic effect of how much people, when they get some support to do the work, and how much money that they're putting towards it. So we actually have data support decreasing that number. We also are putting income requirements on it that was broadly supported, 100% supported, that we put income, and it's 20% above the mean salary, correct? Or income?
I'm sorry, I was deep in the spreadsheet.
Yeah. What was, it was 20% above the average income was the threshold?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I believe that's right.
And
And the age component as well.
Or it's not an and, or an age component, 65 and above. And the ATC had recommended $1,000 threshold, but ops said, we would like to see a $1,500 threshold. So it was bumped up through ops to the 1,500, and it was ops that added the age threshold. And then we also were able to work out a schedule of what zones were going to receive how much funding. It was a blend of dividing the 900 or the funding by 5 versus the percentage of revenue. It's the midpoint between the two. And again, that was supported by the ATC and ops.
So I have a question, Rachel, on that, if that's okay. So in order to be eligible to receive a grant in this new year, you have to have had an inspection. So I assume that for areas that are not being inspected, this program will remain the same for the subsequent year?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
What is the difference between the ops committee and the ad hoc ops committee?
So the ops ad hoc was where, since they're a Brown Act committee, they're, some of the conversations and the deep dives is a little bit difficult in the public environment. So the ops ad hoc is a closed meeting, and it allows us to really have those profound conversations. And Todd, if you want to add anything to that. That's where we roll up our sleeves and really get down to the nitty gritty.
Where we challenge each other.
From a legal perspective, it just means it's under the Brown Act, you're permitted, if you have less than a quorum of the board, you may develop an ad hoc just for a specific subject. So that's the topic for this ad hoc subcommittee was to just discuss specific components of the work plan. And they were allowed to do that because it's for a finite amount of time and it's solely made up of less than a quorum of the board.
And then it's reported out at their outcome is reported out at the public meeting. All right, the next one is our Marin Vegetation Management Specialist. You're going to see, when we update this table, you'll see an increase from last year to this year. And that's because we had split the costs. Some of it was JPA wide for our Vegetation Management Specialist. Some of it was going to be pulled from specific projects. Let's use the Greater Ross Valley Shaded Fuel Break as an example. Whenever one of our VMSs was working on that project, we would bill to that budget for their time. It started to become a little bit cumbersome in doing that. Also, it was harder for project planning, not knowing on how much work they would actually be able to put towards getting implementing that project, because they wouldn't know how many VMS hours that they would have to put to it. So that was an unknown for their project planning. And then in order to save costs and get more project planning, sometimes member agencies were reluctant to use the vegetation management specialists so that they can get more project in there. But there were some efficiencies that would have been realized had the VMSs been used. So after talking to the operations committee, we decided to fund the 2 VMS positions fully out of the JPA wide. However, in our payroll tracking, we know exactly if they were working on JPA wide type stuff versus how much time they spent on this project, how much time. So at the end of the year, we'll be able to do the breakout that this much time was spent in this zone, this much time was spent in that zone. The fireside DSpace inspection software, when you see, instead of each member agency pulling some of their funding out of their DSpace budget to pay for the fireside subscription, we pay for the fireside subscription out of the core budget. We've been doing this since year 2. When you look at last year's table, you'll see a slight increase in this line item. And the reason why the slight increase is that the subscription costs really didn't go up. What we did is the on-parcel risk analysis had been in the metrics category, but really it was supporting the DSpace. So we moved it from the metrics category into the DSpace category. And then you'll notice when you get into the data-driven wildfire risk framework, you'll see a decrease from last year. And if you add up the 2 numbers, you actually see a decrease over the 2 years, just because the lion's share of the building of the data infrastructure has occurred. So now we're realizing efficiencies in being able to analyze that data. Zone 0 or GIS program continuation, we kept that funding flat to the same as last year. And when you see our dashboards that we have for Goal 1 and Goal 5 and our new maps that we have that are showing all of our projects, you're seeing the convergence of all the data and metrics going in and getting funneled to our GIS contractor. And now we're really starting to see those benefits. We felt it was important enough that Zone 0 needs to be coordinated through across the member agencies that we wanted to actually have a work plan topic on that. However, we feel that's Marin Wildfire's mission already. So it's a $0 project. It's a new project, but we just want to memorialize the fact that we're in a coordination role. And we're not the lead, but we're in a coordination role. And then we have the Marin Wildfire Chipper Day program. You'll see that the word reduced because last year was 1.5 million. This year it's 1.4. And again, it's a maturation of our organization. We have a much better understanding of what it's costing to keep the wheels turning on that program. And we still feel that we can increase the number of pickups while having it at $1.4 million. And again, that was also help to create the additional funding for West Marin. So let's talk about West Marin before we circle back to Fire Safe Marin. West Marin, and I shouldn't say West Marin, Coastal Zone Marin, which has portions of Southern Marin and West Marin. If you look at our maps, you see a lot of work in the 101 corridor. You're not seeing a lot of work in the coastal zone. And that's because of, as we've worked with the Coastal Commission for almost 3 years now to create a public works plan, which is a streamlining process for permitting. It's not your permit, it's a streamlining process. Well, we haven't even completed the streamlining process yet. And so that's one of the big reasons why we haven't been able to get any work done in West Marin. With the governor's exemption, we feel this is a prime opportunity for us to get some work done in West Marin. And because of the 80% funding requirement that allows us to flex our resources to a zone that needs it. We've had a priority project in West Marin for the, that started 2 years ago, and that is we've been planning projects for over 2 years now. We have great projects planned. We just haven't been able to get past the regulatory hurdle to get them implemented. So now we're going to be able to leverage that previous priority funding that went to West Marin for that planning to actual go use that for the governor's exemption and get work done. And staff has evaluated our spend rate for other projects relative to what the spend rate would be like in West Marin. And we feel 500,000, it was an appropriate number to land on. So that's where negotiations come, because that core budget's a zero-sum budget. So how are we going to be able to create 500,000 to go to West Marin without a significant impact to each of the zones? So that's why we reduced 2 of our categories in a JPA wide for to create 200,000 to go to West Marin. And then what came out of that was an observation from our one of our ops committee members, who's also on the finance committee, is that perhaps our restricted reserve at 3 million is too high. Restricted reserves really should cover what your liabilities are. Marin Wildfire's liabilities are the core budget, not the DSpace and local pass-throughs. So perhaps setting our restricted reserves based on our 22 million was too high of a restricted reserve, that our restricted reserves perhaps should be set on the 13 million, which is what our liabilities are. And so that would drop our restricted reserve from what we've been carrying at 3 million to 2.1 million. And that's going to be discussed at our finance committee meeting that comes at noon, and then brought to the board. If they recommend that at the board, then we would be able to drop that 3 million to 2.1. That frees up 900,000 that can be used for projects. And staff's recommending using 300,000 of that to add to the 200,000 that we carved out of the JPA wide to give that 500,000 to go to West Marin.
Just a question. I watched the tape of the operations committee, and it was very impressive, all the thorough thought and deliberation. One thing that I think Dan Schwartz was mentioning was that unique project should benefit the whole of MWPA. So maybe you could just address that briefly.
Sure. And I do think that there's a direct benefit for all of the zones, regardless of where we keep a fire small. There's a direct benefit to all of the zones. West Marin being the largest area is where we have the greatest threat for large fires. If you look at since 1929, all of our large fires have been in West Marin. And if there is a resource drawdown due to a large fire in West Marin, that decreases the response capability in the rest of the zones. The same is true in Ross Valley. If we have a resource drawdown in the Ross Valley because of a rapidly expanding fire, that decreases our ability to respond to other fires in other zones. So that's, to me, when we do work like that, that really is showing a benefit across all of the jurisdictions.
Might be good to put a little paragraph in your staff report addressing that.
You bet.
Thank you.
And if you're ready to circle back to Fire Safe Marin, I'm ready for that as well.
That'd be great.
Todd, do you want to add anything? No. All right. So Fire Safe Marin continues to be our key. And I'm going to stop the screen share if you don't mind. Not that you want to see me in the big screen, but Fire Safe Marin continues to be our key partner when it comes to our public messaging. And if you even look at our JPA language, the whereas is included, Fire Safe Marin being that trusted public education arm. I don't think there's any argument whatsoever over that. I don't think there's any argument over the quality of the work that they have been continuing to provide for us. We know that they are awesome at what they do. It's been an excellent collaboration, an excellent partnership between Marin Wildfire and Fire Safe Marin. But any 30% increase to a budget needs to have discussions, and it has to be justified. And so I want to give a little bit of background how the proposed work plan came about and how that translates into a 30% increase. Marin Wildfire staff meets with Fire Safe Marin staff on a weekly basis on Wednesdays at 9 o'clock. We have a joint staff meeting, and that's where Fire Safe Marin, as the role of Marin Wildfire's day-to-day public information officer, because we don't have a public information officer in-house at Marin Wildfire. And in order for us to communicate well to the public, it's day-to-day work. And so it's when we have that interaction is when we were able to shape our day-to-day messaging that Fire Safe Marin is going to do for us occurs that Wednesday, 9 o'clock. And then every 2 weeks, I, as the executive officer, meet with Fire Safe Marin staff to start talking about the strategy level stuff. Okay, for the next 3-4 months, this is what our messaging needs to look like. This is the emphasis that we're going to be having. And that's where over the last several months, we have been talking about that Zone 0 is going to be our main emphasis for fiscal year 25-26. And that's where the ops committee and the fire chiefs came to Marin Wildfire and said, we would like Fire Safe Marin's support for a unified and consistent package of multimedia to defend why we're going to each of our councils and boards for Zone 0 ordinance. And I'm looking at Todd, and it was before he was the city manager at Mill Valley, but I'm remembering the pain when they tried a 3-foot Zone 0 back in 2018. And so we are going to have to defend that very well. In fact, I got a phone call from Jay Lopez today asking me to testify on Monday at a hearing to support Zone 0, because as the Board of Forestry has been having their hearings for Zone 0, the pitchforks are coming out already to fight Zone 0. So, and in every event that I've been to, either virtually or in person regarding Zone 0, the Board of Forestry, CAL FIRE, so many other people are going, if you are going to get Zone 0 over the finish line, it's going to take a tremendous amount of public education. And so that's how, through that interaction, is how we landed on Zone 0 being so important. Fire Safe Marin, being our PIO, is actually a relatively new development. They've been serving in that role for about 1.5 to 2 years. And one thing I want to note, that since day one, Fire Safe Marin's budget coming from Marin Wildfire has not increased. This is the first time they've asked for an increase. In fact, in previous years, there's been a slight decrease. So this is their first time for asking for an increase. When it comes to work plan development, I talked about our every 2-week strategy meetings. We also had additional meetings on top of that as we were building this work plan. And this is the last year that we have with our professional services agreement with Fire Safe Marin. When we entered into the last professional services agreement, Megan and I analyzed it and worked through it and came up with a justification for sole source rather than going to the RFP for Fire Safe Marin. For the sake of transparency, program evaluation, maturing, we feel that looking at November as an opportunity to take a deep dive exactly what we need out of Fire Safe, out of our public education and our outreach, craft an RFP that details exactly what we are looking for. This also could be a time to analyze, as Dan Schwartz pointed out, perhaps the PIO, rather than being outsourced to Fire Safe Marin, could be better served if they are a Marin Wildfire employee. So it's our halfway point. So that could, as we work through the crafting of that RFP, we feel like that's a good opportunity to evaluate how that relationship is, make the RFP, push that RFP out and see what we get. And so we're on board with that. And I do want to mention some concerns that the operations committee had when Fire Safe Marin first talked about the proposal. And they were talking about the increased staffing. But it really isn't increasing the number of people that they have working for them. It's some of their positions were part-time, and they're going to increase the amount of time those part-time employees. And we know that Bill Tyler, after retiring from Novato Fire, is now consulting with Fire Safe Marin. But in reality, it's not a new position. It's Rich Shortall stepped down. His position was never filled. So Bill Tyler really is doing providing that fire subject matter expertise that Rich had provided before. And all of the Fire Safe Marin employees are at an hourly rate. I've seen the hourly rate is a very, we were getting a good deal out of that hourly rate, and there are no benefits with their employment packages. So for 25-26, this is what we're looking for out of Fire Safe Marin. The increased emphasis on Zone 0 and prepping each of our member agencies, giving them a packet for ordinance proposals. We want to continue to grow our FireWise programs. That's been an emphasis since day one of Marin Wildfire, is to continue to grow our FireWise. And when it comes to educating public members and providing a little bit of peer pressure when it comes to Zone 0, we see FireWise as being that key role. We wanted to continue to expand our ambassador program, and that is providing people in the community with subject matter expertise so they can engage with their community members. So people are hearing messages from people they know, people they live next to, and people they identify with. One of the things I really am looking forward to with, this year in 25-26 is increasing the feedback loop between Marin Wildfire, our member agencies, and Fire Safe Marin, and bringing in the communications experts, but also some of the operational folks from each of our member agencies so that we can be together crafting what the messaging is that's coming out of Fire Safe Marin. And then that turns into standardized messaging, but with a gap on the bottom of the whatever the messaging is for the branding for whatever member agencies. But we also need a little bit of flexibility. Novato has a different relationship with their residents than San Rafael has. And so we also need to build a little bit of flexibility for the member agencies to tailor their style of messaging for their communities. And then we need to continue workforce development. I've received feedback so many times that here we are telling people we want gutter guards, we want people with vents, and the number one pain point is non-wood connections to the house for the fences. So many people are coming to us that we can't find a contractor that can do this. We can't find the materials that are doing this. So Fire Safe Marin has been in partnership with the Marin Builders Association and also the Fire Safe Council's, California Fire Safe Council's leadership to help develop a workforce development program to increase the number of people who are available for that. And the argument has been to Marin Builders Association that, hey, a lot of your contractors didn't take advantage of building ADUs and they missed out on a profit. If they don't engage with this type of work, they're going to miss out on a profit. And so that's been motivating them. And we also see this as an equity piece that we could start working with some organizations that are building workforce development through our underrepresented populations, and this and our workforce development for that can also reach into that equity space. So when you look at the breakdown, excuse me, for the budget, PIO support, she takes care of me. PIO support is going to be at about 30% of their effort. We feel the Zone 0 support will be at 10% of our effort. Community partners and with our member agencies is 20%. Engagement with community members, you'd be surprised how many phone calls a day they get. 10% workforce development, we are going to put a lot of emphasis on that with 20%. And then media relations, like the that 8-page pop out, that's 10% of their efforts. And what I really appreciate about Fire Safe Marin and the connection that we have is that they really listen when we have our staff meetings, and we and frame their messaging for that. But the grand jury report flat out said firefighters are not good communicators. And so that's what I appreciate about the team at Fire Safe Marin, is that they are finding out what we want to say and then helping us frame that message in a way that's digestible, and then diversifying that message, whether it's print, on the buses, on the KCBS, and we've developed a great relationship with KCBS through Fire Safe Marin. So they're able, and then social media. I have no clue when it comes to how to get messages out in social media, but they are digging deep into the social media analytics and logarithms that are out there in order to get the most penetration with our messaging. So that's why they were able to get me convinced that a 30% increase for a Fire Safe Marin budget was worth it.
Can I jump in?
Please.
So again, the operations committee, just as a whole, I think it's the committee, I really appreciate being on it. You have city managers, district managers, general managers of the special districts, and then you have the fire chiefs. I equate it to Mira, and when we problem solve, you have the people doing the operation day-to-day expertise, and then you get that budget side of like how city managers will look at a budget, and we challenge each other. Historically, over the last few years with the operations committee, our recommendations to you as a board, we focus in a few areas. Fire safe Marin was always one. As we start to mature every year, the conversation got louder amongst our group saying, are they a vendor, a contractor? Are they a partner? Are they a little bit of both? You know, it's a unique situation, and we're maturing as an agency. As Mark said, they've never increased their fees. And so we said, okay, chiefs, are they doing a good service? Outstanding service. We support them. This is good. They're doing what we're asking them to do. Okay. And so we focused then on the chipper program over the last few years. And we formed ad hoc committees then to go in deep amongst the managers and the chiefs to dive into that of going, what do we need to get to yes? Are we getting everything we should? Is this the right dollar amount? And then we report back to the operations committee, and they have a little bit of faith in that report because we have Mark and his team, you have the chiefs and the managers, and we're saying, okay, here's our recommendation. Again, the chipper program went up another $100,000 this year, and so we had a little bit of a discussion there. But as a whole, we're still confident in that area, and we support the chipper program. But again, as we go into the out years, again, the conversation is going to get louder and louder for us because the overall JPA-wide proposal budget, it's at its max, right? So we're going to have to really start making some hard decisions in the upcoming years. The grant program is another one for us. Is $900,000 enough or not? We're not totally all on the same page. I'm of the opinion it's not. We should do more. What I appreciated this year is that we took a deep dive and said, hey, let's see if we can help more people and how can we do that? And so I really appreciated staff's recommendations, and we fully supported it with the grant program. But as we go forward, it's that ebb and flow before chipper and grant. Is there a way to look at that and think about that and move money around? And so I'll tell you that the chiefs and managers, we rely on the chiefs, but there's been a lot of growing concern and recommendations to really dive into that moving forward. This year, Fire Safe Marin, when they went up 30%, it started with Dan Schwartz in Larkspur, John Stefanski in San Rafael, and Eric Drykosen in Marinwood. Really said, okay, time out. Let's talk about this for a second, because now this is a vendor. This has gotten to a dollar amount, a percentage of our budget, and really a company that started with their partnership with us, and now 90% plus, I think, of their budget is fully related to MWPA. And so we started to dive into it. As we discussed it, we're like, we need to get our subcommittee back to our ad hoc committee together, and let's work on this. So we grabbed Chief Weber. It was Dan Schwartz, John Stefanski, and then I was part of that discussion with staff. And so we engaged and we said, okay, scope of work, are they doing what we're asking them to do? And one thing that came up was actually, they look more like a partner historically. So the chain of command, right? So historically their budget was $965,000. Well, all the chiefs would just contact them outside of, not through Mark, and go, hey, we need you to do this, we need you to do that. And they would do it, and they did a great job. And they probably did more than we were paying them, to be honest, when you start to really get into the dollars and cents of things. And we're like, well, let's fix that. We're a professional organization now. They have a contract. They're a vendor. They should look like a contractor vendor. And then so we should say, okay, this is what we want you to do. How much does it cost for you to do this, right? And so then we started through the ad hoc committee, Chief Weber, and with the great work of Mark and his team, let's do a scope of services. What are we asking you to do? What are the percentages? What does that $1.2 million budget look like? And they really dove in, and that's what they're getting paid for, what we're asking them to do, right? It is a fair contract. That's the recommendation from the experts. And then on our other side, on the manager side, we said, okay, we're in the last year of the contract. If that's what the board wants to do, if they agree with the staff recommendation and the experts going, yes, we want to expand and refine this work plan and scope of work with everything Mark just outlined. If you agree, our check and balances internally, that's probably what they should have been paid. They should have been paid more over previous years, but this is we could sign off on that. We support that, that it matches up. We can defend that in front of a council and the community. But what we said is our advice to Fire Safe Marin is don't hire any staff in yet, because we're not done with this yet. So let's take this to the board. It's a placeholder budget. We're going to do an RFP because, you know, and again, amongst the team, even the managers that brought this up as a concern, as we started to get into it and really spend a lot of time, even Dan Schwartz said in the last meeting, he was like, I could actually argue this is sole source. I'm not totally against saying we shouldn't do it, but as a practice, because we got here really uniquely, I think we owe it to the community and transparency to do an RFP. So the advice to Fire Safe Marin is don't make full-time hires, because we're going to go through this process with you. It's a placeholder budget. We still have more work to do on the scope of services. The board may want to make a change, and that's up to you, right? We want to tee you up for that conversation. And then we're gonna do an RFP process, you know, starting towards November, and then we'll see where we land. And I think that is the appropriate way to go about it moving forward, right? And it's a vendor relationship. So I appreciated the conversation. And I think as you start to go, it was just like the insurance. Last year was our insurance thing. We're like, okay, how are we insured? There's actually a lot of risk. We're responsible, you know, what are we doing? And so we spent a lot of time with that. And now we're in a good place, right? We have the right insurance. We have the right risk management. Fire Safe Marin now is going to look more like a vendor relationship, and it's for the board. You'll be set up to make a decision if that's the way you want to go. And then I think moving forward, and maybe even this year, it's still the chipper program a little bit, and you know how we look at these pots of money, you know, of where they should all be, and the grant program. So overall, that was our big picture kind of conversation about everything. The other one was West Marin. I think the conversation went perfect. The only thing I would add to that is that's why we formed this JPA, and that 80% and going, look, it does have to benefit our area, maybe not the whole county, but benefit, you know, more than just your city or your little area of influence. But West Marin, we always knew we were going to have to be creative when those opportunities came up to protect West Marin, right? You're only as strong as your weakest link. This is one of those moments in time that I think with the group, I was really proud of the ATC and the ops committee, because we all got it. And we're like, hey, this is an opportunity. Let's go take advantage of it right now. So we're excited about that and making that recommendation to you. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, appreciate it. Thank you. Catherine?
Thanks a lot, but I also jumped at the idea of 30% increase, which amounts to $303,000. And the description of what we need to do in West Marin and where money can come from. And so I'd asked you, and you said that it won't take away from any of the other core projects, all that. But to me, this is, okay, so then we talked about the need to help with Zone Zero. So there are 6 elements that you have in the work program for Fire Safe Marin. Only 10% or $127,700 or $800 is going toward that particular element, whereas you have 30% going to communications and public information services. So that's a vague thing at $383,400. I'm sorry, I'm making all of these breakdowns because I used the percentages and the actual numbers that you're proposing. I watched both ops committee and the ad hoc ops committee, you know, videos. There was a huge difference between the first meeting and the second meeting, as if everything had been taken care of sort of behind the scenes. And I really appreciate your explanation, Todd, because that's the part I didn't hear. And I'm really concerned about on-the-ground projects, because in addition to the grand jury saying fire chiefs are not great communicators, they also said that we have lower population areas, lower residential areas that don't get attention because they don't have the funds to do it. I did not know that we've been in a 4-year process with the Coastal Commission. That's a travesty, and why we haven't gone to our legislators or somebody to help push it through is an amazing thing to me. So this is where my head is at right now. it's presented kind of as an all or nothing
Mm.
30% increase. And I don't see why there couldn't be a different balance, or
There
do you
can.
understand what I'm saying?
So two things. The reason why you saw the difference in the two, how we operate. So our committees, I'm proud of it, right? There's no Brown Act, but we're not talking off to the side. That ad hoc committee, so when they assign us to do something and they come back, if you watch the first meeting to the second,
I did.
they're looking at the ad hoc committee members. And they're like, we've delegated you, give us what is your finding? And they trust us to give that because they've earned that trust. And so when they spoke and they had that conversation out loud, the rest of the group said, okay, but here's the caveat of how you got the group to be unanimous. This is a placeholder to your point. So San Rafael, John Stefanski brought it up and said, hey, I think I like an analysis. Maybe some of our individual agencies have the bandwidth to do some of this public campaign stuff. Maybe we can do it cheaper and better and save money. Like, we want to have that analysis. We want to have that discussion. So that's one example to what you said. We're going to go full steam ahead with the Zone Zero conversation. And we also talked about it as a group on numerous occasions that it's going to take all of us. Like, we're going to have to take not just MWPA, but all of our agencies and form a group and go to all the agencies as we move forward as experts. It's going to be a heavy lift. And so there's a lot that'll go into it, and we'll need a lot of support. With that said, this is a placeholder budget, Catherine, and I think we're not done yet. So between now and if you approve this, in November, it's not something that we have to just accept. It's not all or nothing. We may come back when we get into after, through the summer and we go through this, we may dial back some of that budget. We're not done with the scope of services and how we want to look at it. There's still a lot of discussion to be had. We put a placeholder because our experts, what we got as a manager, I'm looking to my chiefs and I'm just looking at all of them, and I'm big and small and north and south, and what is your recommendation? You have to do this. Is this right? I'm relying on you. And so they were unanimous. And so that was a tough one for us as managers. We're not going to get into the weeds necessarily on that. We're going to trust them based on their analysis. But we still think there's going to be an opportunity to save some money, move some money around. We don't want Fire Safe Marin to make long-term decisions because we may change it this first 6 months of the fiscal year. And definitely we're going into an RFP. So, and then this is a year of unknown. There is so much going on. We're going to want resources, and the recommendations from Fire Safe Marin and the chiefs are, here's how you should probably allocate this in percentages. So that's how we got there. Not saying it's right or wrong. I just want you to understand the discussion.
Yeah.
I'm going to add in a few comments. So I agree with where Catherine's going with some of this, is that, and I also, they're really entertaining, those ops meetings. So watch the ops meetings. To me, I mean, if we're looking at this from our role of being strategy, right? And being, really focused on policy. Right now, if we really do get the opening to do the work in West Marin, which we haven't had, we need to change the map, the way the map looks, that we're able to do the work there. I would like to see more funding in for West Marin, additional 500,000. We know this work costs a lot, and we're going to end up having to put a lot of resources there very quickly to do that work and to take advantage of that. And I'd like to ensure that we have the funding to do that. I also think that the direct assistance and the grant program, also right now it's flat year over year funding. I'd like to see more. And if we're going to educate the communities around the value of Zone Zero, having those tools available to show the work and how it can be done and to facilitate, again, we need to increase the funding there. In terms of our work around Zone Zero and looking at ordinances, I don't believe yes, we're going to need to work directly with the agencies to do that, but we need some pre-work at the jurisdiction level. I don't know if they have even looking at budgeting and allocating conversation for this year, coming into the next year, of are they going to move forward with this? Is it a priority for that jurisdiction? And that's not marketing communication. Those are smaller conversations to be able just first, because if we as an agency, Marin Wildfire, pushes out, we're all moving to Zone Zero, we need to do some ramp up to work with the jurisdictions to make sure they're there first before we do that big promotional piece. we have a lot of promotional pieces out there around Zone Zero. What we need to do is get the jurisdictions on board to then communicate to their communities around that. So I'd like to see what fire safe, and again, it's not a question of the work is excellent. The materials they provide are excellent. I am concerned about a 30% increase when I'm not seeing an increase in any of the work that we're doing, not outside of Marin Wildfire. We are the community, the nonprofit agencies, we are all really concerned about the environment and where we are right now in terms of what we're going to be able to serve and deliver for our community. And I think we're going back to Marin Wildfire, we're going to end up having to rely more on the direct assistance and the grants. And so I'm a little, and I know, and I am the first one to pick up the phone and call Fire Safe Marin and say, I have a new project. Let's do it. We do need to rein in the scope creep. And because I contribute to that as well. And I think that, that is really important. I'd like to see what they can do with a flat budget. If we're, right now, a year over year flat budget. And then if we really can't deliver, what can they deliver with that? Or what are we asking they can deliver with a flat budget? And then if we can't, then start funding in additional. Because I'm not, again, that increase of 30%, to me, it's not tangible enough in terms of we're going to get X, Y, and Z. And did we really request X, Y, and Z? I'm not sure we did. And so that's where I would want to relook at that. I'd also, one of the comments, and I really appreciated it, is that, with Ember Stomp and some of the other ones that we're looking to get those grant funding, we don't allocate the funds first in the hope to get grant funding. We get the grant funding, and if you can't do it, we can't do it. And I'm not quite sure if that 150,000 is to cover agency staffing for Ember Stomp. That doesn't seem like enough because there was a lot of, right? It's not. But you said the agency staffing for Ember Stomp.
No, it's agencies had been asked to contribute, not their staffing.
But so the agencies aren't going to be asked to contribute.
They're not financially, they'll be asked to attend. But what the
Which is
request in the past was contribute to this so that we can pay for the facilities. We could pay for Red Barn Productions. We could pay for all the logistics of putting it on. It wasn't about staffing.
But those were done, that was paid last year it wasn't paid by Marin Wildfire last year, or it was?
It was member agencies using funding. A lot of them either used their own funding or they used some of their local funding towards that.
Okay. All right. Well, again, with Ember Stomp, we're looking at the areas that we've increased for this year, where I would, again, like to focus on West Marin and direct assistance and grants.
Well,
My 2 cents, or a lot more than that, but yeah. Okay. Catherine?
I just want to say, first of all, you guys do a fabulous job. Our staff does a terrific job. And Fire Safe Marin, excellent job. This has nothing to do about the quality of the work. It's not a criticism. It's a time when jurisdictions are looking at the federal level, are concerned about income coming to cities. And fortunately, our fire district is okay so far, but I imagine that Mill Valley and Sausalito have these concerns. And the optics of a 30% increase without something really specific. Can you address that for me?
Well, what I can do is provide a little perspective because, we're worried about the public education campaign against vegetation management. So if you look at our level of effort, we have, was it 7.5 million going towards vegetation management and under 2 million going towards public education. So I do think we are still, even though a 30% increase is a huge increase, we are still putting a significant level of our effort towards vegetation management.
I would argue the grants program is one of the very best ways that we've gotten the public engaged and people telling people about it, and how we do that, continuing to fund it and make it increase, that's a way to get people engaged. The same with the chipper programs. They're visible in the neighborhoods. It's really, so we're at the local level, we're also doing all of our part. So those are all really valuable too. And I definitely recognize the Zone Zero need. I mean, if we were to attempt to do an ordinance at this point, the pitchforks would be out, as you said. But that brings to the question of why you only allocated 10% out of that raise to support for compliance with Zone Zero.
Well, but they're also, so 10, that's specific to Zone Zero, but when you look at one of the other categories where we are saying, working with our member agencies and developing content, there's a bleed over in that. So we tried to make silos, but when you talk about all of this work, it's really, really hard to make silos. And so the category of working with our member agencies and developing content rolls into supplementing and supporting the Zone Zero. So that's why how we were able to come up with the 10% versus it being a bigger number.
Thank you.
So we have just had in the town of Ross kind of a, I won't say shit show because we're being recorded.
I watched that. Good job, by the way.
Yeah, thank
You're
you.
outstanding.
And I, when I went to college at UCLA, there was a communications major, and I always looked at communications as a major as, oh, that's such a easy, silly, meaningless major. In light of the experience that we've had with our fire station in the town of Ross since 2020, and it's still going on, communications is so important. And what happens if Fire Safe Marin doesn't spend all this money? The budgeted amount, it will roll over, right? And
Be redirected.
and we'll do an RFP in the fall to ensure that either Fire Safe Marin is the right entity, or we'll carve it out, or we'll have a PIO that works for Mark and Ann directly. I mean, there's many ways to skin the cat. I think this is kind of a maturing, it's an evidence of a maturing agency, and our relationship started out more informal. It's getting more formalized with the amount of work that they're doing. But to me, in working with fire-wise communities and talking to residents and emerging fire-wise communities, Zone Zero is going to be a really, really difficult lift for every jurisdiction. And we are going to need a ton of help to get that message right, to deal with the psychology, to deal with the aesthetics, the resistance, the denial, all of those factors. So I think it's really important that we rely on the expertise of the ops committee who's recommending this amount, and not second guess what our ops committee and the experts are recommending. And I think the way the grant program is structured now, really only half the population is going to be eligible for grants this year. And then the other half will be eligible next year based on the inspections that are going on. So we're kind of actually increasing the grant program because fewer people are going to be eligible based on when the inspections are happening. And then there was something else I was going to say. Yeah, I don't like second guessing what the experts have recommended. You all have spent so much time delving into these issues and discussing them, and you bring such expertise to the table. So I am very comfortable going with the recommendation for Fire Safe Marin and the grant program and really everything else.
I'd just like to add on one thing around this is that, I mean, I am talking about an increase. I mean, Fire Safe Marin has done so much, and we're not saying cut their funding. We're saying be careful on the increase amount. And so there is still a huge level of funding that is going towards this work. And I think it's what can we do with that existing funding based on what our goals are and what we want to achieve, whether if it's reducing videos, if it's whatever it is, what do we really need, and do we need it at that amount? Because that's what are the actual deliverables? And I am going from the expert's perspective from the ops meeting, the first two ops meetings versus last one where there was sort of a hedging consensus of, okay, let's go with it. Let's move forward.
Well, I think we struggle the same way you are now.
Yeah.
You know, here's the thing. So when you're having this conversation, you don't have it in front. None of us have, like we didn't. You don't have it in front of you. You're like, show me what have we been doing and why this gap? And you don't have it. And so when you start to dive into it, you realize, what are we asking? We're talking to each other now. It's us. We're asking Fire Safe Marin to do the following. We have historically, right? All the mission creep. I'll tell you that we've gotten a deal. It shouldn't have been $965,000. It should have been in the 7 figures. So that jumped out. And then we go, okay, well, they haven't had an increase in 3 years. Well, any contract goes up on average CPI 3%. We can all wrap our head around that. So right away you're going, okay, if they haven't had one, it should go from this fiscal year to next, let's just say 9 or 10%. Now, how do we get to the other 20? What's the uniqueness? And that's on us. We're asking them to do the following that's unique that they haven't done in the past. And then also we're looking at the mission creep. Hey, is it a member agency going to do that? Or are we going to have MWPA do it? You know, who should do it? And the fire chiefs have said, we want Fire Safe Marin to do it. It should be one single voice. And so when you filled in that CPI of 9 or 10%, you filled in that mission creep that we want people to do. That was a few, percentage points. And then what we're asking them to do now, it was right around 30%. The question now of it's timing. So let's just say zone 0, and that's 10% of this 30% increase, but because it's a big portion of it. And we go, all the fire chiefs that are individual agencies, like you said, when we get to November, we're going to say, are we going zone 0? Is that the way the state's going to have us go? Do we all agree on it? Is the recommendation of the councils to do it? That's when we'll know. And let's say it's yes. Then we have the funding to go do the second piece, the education, because we'll need it. And none of us can do it alone. But if it's not, and the legislature can't get squared away and doesn't figure it out, guess what? That 10% in the budget, it's not getting spent, right? And so that's the other piece. So again, I just want to point out that there is a reason for it and a justification. Is the sky going to fall if you take this budget and go, yes, you should have 9 or 10% for the CPIs you didn't get? And yes, we agree as a board, if staff can show you when you get to that decision, it's justified. And you're like, yeah, I'm not going to do the additional 10 though. It's 20% one time. The sky is not going to fall for us. So, okay. But I want to point out that we are the ones asking them to do this. And they are saying this is what we need to provide it. That's the piece I want.
As long as that's the direction, right? As long as that
Correct.
really is that. And I think there have been times where I know Fire Safe Marin is everywhere, which has been helpful, but I also get concerned when community members say, well, why do we need Fire Safe Marin and Marin Wildfire?
It's education.
Right. That's on
That's
us, and that's on us to make sure
Yeah.
people understand. And I have to explain, Fire Safe Marin is 100% fueled by Marin Wildfire.
So I would like to get to yes, but here's, so my concern, you've really articulated it well, was I feel a sense of responsibility if if we all say, take this budget to the full board and we have these iffy situations. When you explain that this is not the final budget, that things can change, that the state still has to weigh in on what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. If there could be some kind of introduction as a staff report or something like that, that would sort of say that, because I'm thinking this is it, and we are tied to a certain budget, and these figures are the ones that are going to go forward. And then, then I feel responsible if things don't go the right way.
I think that's a good point of like being through this conversation multiple times, and I'm sorry, Bruce, I need to let you talk.
I know.
Is like, how do we get that full 360 conversation so you can vet it? But you're the board, you get to dictate. I mean, we look at this as a placeholder. We want to make sure we have the funding if we need it, because we're going to have to go. We're not going to have time to go to, all the in the board. And it's a public conversation. From come back.
And we don't want to hear that we've run out of money for grants. Bruce?
Yeah, I want to give my perspective on this, that we we as a board and an entity, we took the time to put together a strategic plan. And we have 5 specific objectives and defensible space, home hardening, public education, ingress and egress. The public education, and what I want to say is that we have done an astounding amount of work building out this organization and building out the framework for action and identifying what are the strategic actions that we take now. And let me just say, as a professional, we're 5 years into probably a 30 to 40-year project. And the nuances of the build out that we have to have certain tools in place. We have to have certain things. We have a strategic plan. We have 5 specific goals. We have metrics and monitoring, and I feel that that the operations, the ATC and operations, are the boots on the ground. They're ones who feel they know how well are things going, what are their issues, what's pressing for them, what's enough now, where do we need to work? And I'm wanting to hear, and I think I've heard that the value added proposition, you're making that there's a value added to this increase to the to the fire safe Marin. I mean, it's I think it's there, and I think to try to tweak, $100,000, $200,000 or $300,000 anywhere within this budget we're all making our best estimates and assessments of what's effective now and what not. I am trusting of the hard work that the ATC does and the chiefs, and I feel like if this were a $10 million project or a not doing something, I would have clear sentiments. But I talk with my chief, and we communicate with ATC folks what they're up to. I think that at this point in time, I just support bringing this to the full board and being clear that that we'd expect the presentation to include that 30%. If that being there, what is the value at this point in time? What do we need now that we don't need next year or 2 years from now? Why are we making this investment now and not 2 or 3 years from now? So I propose just bringing this to the full board for discussion. And if it's compelling and convincing, yes. If it's not, I mean, we can make a minor change to it. But I need to hear the value added proposition and the time, why it's time sensitive.
Fair enough. Julie?
Just looking at the chart that was in the staff report, there's a few things that have gone down, like that you mentioned, like environmental compliance for core projects has gone down 154,000. The Genesis Ladris subscription has gone down 140,000. I think there's quite a few things where we made an initial investment to get the agency started up, and we're not having to spend those big amounts going forward. And maybe there could be a paragraph in your staff report that's recognizing the costs that were kind of one-time costs or initial investment costs, because just adding those two together is $294,000, which is almost what the Fire Safe Marin amount is that we want to give them. So maybe there's a way to look at it that way.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mhm.
And again, if I can just say that we're in build out phase here. We are building, we're putting the pieces together to build this thing to be effective, to have it be what we want it to be. What is it we're building out at this point in time that's so compelling that we make this investment? That, I think, is the question that I would ask and ask you to answer to us.
Good question. And our budget has to support our priorities. Right, it definitely does. I appreciate it. Going back to the board, we are over time. We have a finance committee meeting immediately following this one for those who are on finance. I'll bring it back. We actually have to wrap this whole thing up. So, Mark, any other comments?
Overall sentiment, asking a question. If the finance committee likes the idea of decreasing the restricted reserve from 3 million to 2.1 million, which is staff's recommendation, what is your sentiment of using 300,000 of that to go towards the West Marin to make that budget 500,000? and in consideration of what we could do with that other 600,000. And it could be going to West Marin, although we're not sure, based on how slow it is in West Marin, if we could actually spend more than 500,000. That'd be 500,000 on top of the 380,000 that's already budgeted. So it would be a total of 880,000 that would be going to West Marin. Or if we want to amplify the reimbursement grant program, perhaps we can use some of the restricted reserves that we aren't going to use as restricted reserves anymore to put more funding into the grant program.
I definitely support putting it into the grant program. I mean, I can't say about the West Marin Peak because that seems like that's a bit of a variable in terms of the work. Others?
I just one issue that we have not discussed. I haven't heard these words spoken, but it's a strategic question. As you know, Nevada and San Rafael have, we're 26 and 25%. Others, West Marin altogether maybe makes up 7%. I don't know what it is. Let's say it's 10%. Their needs are huge. They have a western landscape, and we're modeling 2 fire scenarios. One is the northeast winds, which we know are going to happen. It happened in Nevada in 1923, and it burned to the coast. I haven't seen a fire burn from the coast inland, but it could happen, Mark. We know that. So these are things. So we have to take care of West Marin. We have a grant specialist. And strategically, I would like us to just add in at some point that as we look for grant funds to complete the essential work that needs to be done, Nevada isn't as in need as West Marin. And I'd like to hear a strategic goal of seeking and getting grant funds to achieve West Marin objectives to the extent that we can.
We're actually in the process of doing that.
Yeah, Mark, I just I like to speak the word.
Yeah, we're at the very beginning of a very ambitious grant request.
Yeah, no, thank you. I just had to speak the words.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to public comment on this one. On the work plan. Sorry for those on the public. This was a big conversation for us. No hands at this time. All right, thank you. Any other conversation from the
I
committee?
just wanted to point out that if we are successful in getting the outside funding for Ember Stomp and grant funding for the revised CWPP, that is $450,000. So there's lots of places, I think,
Yeah,
that
the
we
moving
can
parts.
supplement. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, moving on. So we have the draft agenda for May 15th. Oh, do we have a motion on this? Oh, was there an action item on this?
COC, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, the COC report was the action item. So,
Way back on action number 7.
and it's so for sake of time, the motion should be to accept staff's recommendations, including a discussion on cost share with the board at a later date.
For the Rangers. Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Right. All right, thank you. Thank you for the reminder. Update on the agenda for,
The agenda, I think we have it pretty much buttoned up. Given the robust conversation where we have 2 things colliding of the COC and the work plan in a meeting, we could make the our staff is recommending that perhaps we start at 2 or 2:30 for the board meeting rather than 3. And I'm going through my mental image of the agenda. I don't see any other additions that we're going to make to the agenda except an additional information item that of the great work that the Ecologically Sound Practices Group, they have a sheet where they're tracking all the work that they've done. We're going to include that as an information item. That's the only addition to the agenda.
very nice. Okay, good. All right, any other things on this one? Any items from the public on this one?
There are no public comments at this time.
Okay, all right. Any requests for future agenda items? Thank you. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the conversation. Thank you, Todd.